All right, the planning fallacy. So I found this cartoon. I think it's funny. We have two ghosts here, and one says, "Can you get the report to me by Friday?" The rational thing to do would be to recognize that it took over a week to develop the last report and suggest a week, and then you have a lovely Thursday evening. But then what we actually do is we overcommit, we say that we're going to do it, and then we have to say no to other important things and then rush through the process of completing this task. And that is the planning fallacy in a nutshell. And we know that this leads to a lot of things. I just have a few listed. We get anxiety. We start to feel overwhelmed. If you're like me, when I start to get too overwhelmed, I tend to want to shut down. We're rushed, and so our work tends to be sloppy. And then we also don't make the best decisions when we're rushing, when we're kind of in this position where we have to meet this deadline, where we've overcommitted ourselves. And so there's a couple of ways to address this, other than just the big old like time management and awareness obvious answer. But I want you to consider thinking about a writing process, recognizing that writing is not linear and it is very iterative and it doesn't occur quickly in a vacuum where there's no other distractions. And so if you can start to think of what is your writing process, maybe it doesn't follow this exact cycle, and then creating a timeline for it. And I'll show you an example of a timeline in a moment. But this stage here, pre-writing, that's typically happening without you even realizing it. So it's not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily sit down, okay, this is the pre-writing period. You're already doing that as you're preparing to write, as you're gathering literature and really clarifying your ideas. But then there is the planning stage. I highly recommend planning and scheduling time for it. And then drafting, and I think reflection is also important. So if you start to think of writing as this process that includes many steps, it's not just writing and editing or writing and then feedback, then you start to realize, okay, this is an extended time period that I need, and I'm not going to commit to writing this chapter or this draft in a very rushed period of time. And so this is what that can look like, is a timeline. Create a timeline for yourself and then track your progress. So I create timelines very frequently with my clients. I find it helpful for goal setting and accountability. But in thinking about combating this planning fallacy trap, if you start to list out your actual completion date, and then you can refer to that later to remind yourself, if someone asks you, if you, like, let's say you're a doctoral candidate and you start documenting how long it takes for you to write each chapter, then maybe a few years go by and you go into academia and you're writing a manuscript, that's going to take a completely different period of time. It's not as long. And so just tracking all of this can be helpful for you because it's a reminder of, this can't be rushed. I need to give myself adequate time. And then you can make more informed decisions when you're committing to deadlines. I have an example here is like if someone was writing their lit review, how they might break down the writing process, document target deadlines, and then document actual completion dates.